Hi everyone. We'll be waiting 2 to 3 minutes before starting the webinar to accommodate for the rest of the attendees who are in the middle of connecting. Welcome everyone. I'm Valim Kalika and I'll be your host for today. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being part of our community. Just a few reminders before we start. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. During this time, please feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on the Ask Question button. Be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. Now, we often get many questions on these webinars, and we'll do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event, if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on Microsoft Defender ATP forum at aka.ms/mdatptc. If you're listening to this after the fact as a recording, that's also a great place to ask questions. Now, we love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. You can do so at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. And while you're there, please join our community by visiting aka.ms/security-community. And all these links that I'm calling them up, you have them on the IM window that I posted them earlier. So joining our community is the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can ask directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews, which you can sign up for at aka.ms/security-private-preview. And while you're there, you can request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, attend in-person events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. We have an exciting topic today. Heike will take us through the end-to-end security for your endpoints using Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection. Heike Ritter is a senior program manager with our Microsoft Defender ATP team. And without further ado, I will turn it over to her. Heike, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Valon. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining wherever you are in the world. So I want to kick off all of this by talking about different people in your organization that take care of security. Why am I doing this? Because we need to include multiple people in the conversation when it comes to protecting endpoints. So we are not only talking to the security operations team that are usually responsible for monitoring threats and doing forensic analysis. And then there's a security admin that is responsible maybe for security management, security configuration. We also need to include the IT admin that is responsible for the patching of the system, to creating a baseline image, because they want to also really make sure that their operating system and image and all of this is stable and has a great performance for the users. So Microsoft Defender ATP addresses the needs for all these different personas to do their job properly. We also have a rich role-based access control model so that people can see what they need to see for their individual roles. So when you look at Microsoft Defender ATP today, and we are going through these pillars today, and because you can see it's a rich platform with a lot of different capabilities, we will touch base on every single of them. So when I started working for Microsoft Defender ATP as a marketing manager, it was only an EDR solution at the very beginning, and I got an hour to talk about it, and I used the full hour to talk about an EDR solution. So now you can see we have a lot of more in there, and I still only get an hour. So we could spend probably for every single icon that you see here, capability, over an hour, and I will just touch base on the, for me, most important pieces, and then we can take the conversation offline, and we will also add on this channel additional webinars to drill down deeper into each of these in the future. So I just wrote down, for me, the most critical values that we have across the different across the suite. So for everybody who is moving or is on Windows 10 and it's still moving to Windows 10, it's embedded. There's nothing to deploy, which is a very big step for your IT admins and the security admins. So nothing to deploy, it's embedded into Windows. And we have world-class anti-tampering protection that nobody can actually play around with this thing to disable it or whatever. You get 6 months of storage. So all the events and all of this that's being collected is being sent to your own customer dedicated tenant in the cloud. And you can decide between 30 days and 6 months of storage, which also means if there's a breach that you detect or a security incident that you detect a little later, and maybe this specific client is already reformatted or is not available anymore, you still have the evidence and the data in the cloud to do your full analysis. So and then we also have, and we are going to talk about this, threat and vulnerability management. We have a secure score and a configuration assessment telling you what you should configure to be more protected. And then when I read CA, I also think about Microsoft Conditional Access, which is a very big differentiator here as well, saying, hey, if there's a threat detected on your devices, the risk level goes high, the device is not compliant anymore, and we can block access to corporate resources. So this is one part of, for instance, the cross-suite integration, where we integrate with other Microsoft security solutions to give you the best integrated experience across your assets and across identity, endpoints, apps and data, and the network. And this is just a couple of those, and I'm going through those. So The industry, and then I'm going into the tech part in just a moment, but I'm very proud and very happy because it took us to get there. And we worked, as Valon mentioned, closely with customers. We listen to our customers, we want their feedback, and we have design partners. So we are not just building a solution and throwing it out there and say, hey, here's what we think you need. We actually work with customers. So your feedback builds the product. So please keep doing this. And this was recognized by the industry here as well, which is, again, a huge achievement to be named as a leader in the Forrester Wave by Forrester, as well as by Gartner in their August 2019 Magic Quadrant for endpoint protection. And then we also participate in independent tests, which is AVT, ABC, SE Labs, and soon coming out the second MITRE evaluation. We have participated in the one last year, as well as this. It was also last year, but the results are coming out this year. So very excited about great outcome and great results. So let's talk about the individual capabilities. So I would like to start with threat and vulnerability management. And this is what it's called the maturity level. So you can be at level 0, you have nothing, or you can go to level 5, kind of from 0 to hero. Many customers, they're not there, but level 4 and 5, because the current solutions don't allow them to go there. It's not that nobody wants to go there. So I don't know where you find yourself, and you don't have to read this now, but we can help you to find your level that is the one that is acceptable for you, because it's a mix between making sure that you are not vulnerable, but also there is always a little risk that customers are good with accepting because of priorities, business priorities, and also maybe you can't configure this or can't patch this because of productivity needs or whatever. So the key pain points that we are hearing from our customers with the current solutions when it comes to threat and vulnerability management is the part discover, which is still sometimes very often a periodic scanning. So customers scan their network and they don't have even their threat and vulnerability or their vulnerability scanners on all devices. They have it on their high valuable assets or servers only, and they get a periodic scanning. So it's kind of this, they send something out, I don't know, once a month, once a week, and then they have a snapshot of what is on the boxes right now. But, you know, it's very dynamic. There's a new update coming, there is a new software being installed, and then you don't have this captured in your snapshot that you just got. And then the next part is, if they think about, oh, let's remediate those vulnerabilities, there is usually it goes based on severity. So you look at what's the highest, what's the reddest, the most reddest CVE that I see in my list. But it doesn't mean that this is actually the most critical threat to your organization, because yes, it could be very high out there, but only if it's actually being executed and used. So yes, you can have installed application foo, but it doesn't mean that someone is actually using application foo. And then there's also no insights into maybe this is a more critical asset to your organization than other PCs that you should fix first. And then in order to remediate, the wait for someone to patch it, there is also no feedback back. Has it been done or not? And it's often a manual process. And again, getting the signal back, like, okay, it has been done, is often a challenge. That's what we hear from our customers. So bottom line means there's a lot of nice, great tech out there, a lot of costs, and organizations are still remaining highly vulnerable. So we are taking a risk-based approach, and I will go into a demo in a moment, but this is how it should be. You should have a continuous discovery and continue understanding of what is being installed, what is running on the box, what DLL is calling another DLL. And then you need prioritization to help you decide which should be fixed first, and then a process that helps you to automate the remediation and get a feedback loop across the different audiences that I showed you before, because probably the IT admin is the one who runs, I don't know, Microsoft Intune, Microsoft Endpoint Manager to patch the systems, and the security admin is looking into the vulnerabilities. So before I move over, I'm going into my demo. So you see in this navigation, there is a separate icon for threat and vulnerability management, and we have a lot of pages down here. So I will start with the dashboard. The dashboard gives you an overview about your organization exposure score. And of course, you want to have it low. It gives you an also a exposure score over time, where you can see all the what has been done. Hopefully these things go down. A configuration score, which is the security score with numbers, how many points you could get to be more secure in order if you would configure additional operating system configuration, turn on security controls. And then you have an exposure distribution for your organization. So this is the organizational view, and there's a lot of more vulnerable software, remediation activities, top exposed machines. And in order to reduce these numbers here or get these higher, we have our top security recommendations, which consider the your organizational, like the software that is being installed and is being executed and is critical for your organization to be mitigated. And remember, so we have we are using actually our EDR data, like we are on the endpoint and we are not a scanner. So we are here constantly. They have a constant monitoring of what is being installed, and you always have a near real-time visibility into all of that. And we know even if there's a line of business application that we don't have a clue about because it's your in-house built solution, we know that this is calling a malicious, I don't know, Flash, Adobe, something DLL, which you should fix. So here you can see the updates, and then we have a few icons here. And if you hover over those icons, you can actually see what they mean. So this means there is an active campaign out there leveraging this vulnerability and targeting our customers. So, which brings me, before I click on this, to another great rich insight for which is threat analytics. So if I click on this guy here, for instance, it will bring me in a second to another dashboard or a view which shows me exactly this specific vulnerability. It gives me an executive summary. Our deep analysis, how this thing works. It gives me a kill chain. It shows me what are the mitigations that I should do, and all the detections and all the deep, rich insights into this specific CV. It also shows me if there is any machines in my organization that have an alert based on this vulnerability. It shows me all the machines that have the required patches installed, some machines are still exposed, and what I should do in order to fix this. So this is a great insight. This is a threat to posture view for a lot of different threats that are out there. So we have a rich database. You can search for a CVE number here. You can click for the latest ones. And if you see a little icon here, I got this feedback yesterday, with a number, let's say you haven't been in the portal for like a day or two, and then you see a number of 3, which means that there are 3 new threat reports that you haven't looked at yet. So it's not yet critical for your organization. So if I go back to my dashboard, so this is one big important piece, and it also we of course give you the context for every single machine. So this is the organizational view. If I click on a specific machine, I would see what are the vulnerabilities on this specific machine. Is there, what's the risk level and so on. So I'm clicking on this guy now to see what are my security recommendations. You can see all of them here. This is update the WinRAR. This is what are the exposed machines, and I can say what are my remediation options. And this is, unfortunately, I don't have the required permissions in my demo, because if everybody was just like solving problems here, I would not have some critical things to show. But as you can see, we are integrating with Microsoft Intune as well as, or Microsoft Endpoint Manager, as well as the ServiceNow. If you have this integration enabled, and you can say open a ticket in Microsoft Intune, you get a priority that you can set a due date, as well as add additional information for the IT guys to, for instance, say, hey, this is very critical and targeting our organization, please fix ASAP. So you can get additional information, and then you submit the request. And this request will open a security task in Microsoft Intune with all the context, of course, the context that was set here in the site pane, but also what other machines impacted by this that needs the fix and all of this. And of course, we are working on doing this at some point automated, but right now it will create a ticket and the IT admin needs to accept that ticket and then perform the tasks that are written there, which means there's a guidance, like guidelines in there, download this patch and so on. And then here as the security admin, you will actually be able to look at the remediation status and the remediation progress. So this is the most beautiful view on a Patch Tuesday, because you will see how the in progress bar just moves from 0 to full blue once the patches are being installed. Because again, we are not a scanner. We don't need to go out and scan again if things have happened. We have the live data from all your endpoints. And you could see this pending approval, this is rejected, and there was feedback back. So you get the feedback loop for fixing your vulnerabilities. So this is just, I know I talked already a lot about TVM because I think it's a hero that everybody should be aware of. And but there's so much more. So we will do a deep dive into TVM at some point as well. Moving on, next pillar is attack surface reduction, and this is a group of lots of things. So if you look at what attack surface reduction includes, it's all these capabilities, and it should help you to, yes, reduce your attack surface and restrict applications to access things that are not needed, that are known as being leveraged, and only allow them to do what is needed. So I'm not going through all of these. I picked network protection and web protection to go a little bit deeper, but application control, for instance, it's critical. We are not in the world anymore where we say, yay, we allow everything to run, and only when we know it's not good anymore, we block it. We should think the other way around. Everything is blocked until you know it's good, and then you're allowed to run it. And we make it easy because all the applications that are in your baseline image, everything that's being deployed with Microsoft Intune, SCCM, or so on, will automatically be on the allow list, as well as you can trust our reputation list to also allow these applications that are being identified as good by our knowledge. So if we look at web protection, network protection, we all know the pain points. We are not in a world anymore that, yeah, everything behind the firewall is good. This is not the current world anymore. Everybody is working from everywhere, and not only now, it was a little while before as well. We have a rich usage of SaaS applications, which is a challenge for customers to understand where's data going, uploaded to portals and things. We have a lot of phishing and web threats out there that are, yeah, getting the people on the hook every day. And then again, anywhere connectivity, it's the phone, it's any kind of device. So our features that we brought to the platform is web threat protection. We have a URL and IP allow and block, as well as we are integrating with Microsoft Cloud App Security on a deep base to give them the events for all the endpoints that are not connected to the CorpNet and are not going through the corporate proxy, as well as integration with blocking. So if you have unsanctioned application that you don't want to allow anymore, you just click a button and we will block this. So when it comes to web threats, again, we have phishing, we have tech scams and all of this, and you probably have seen the screen before, which is our smart screen that protects users from accessing all these unwanted applications and all these things. So this is built into our browsers. And then with now it's the first time actually that we give you visibility into what has been executed or like what has been accessed. So for instance, here you can see there was a suspicious connection blocked by, this is network protection because we have smart screen. This slide comes later. So smart screen, of course, is built into our browsers, but we have network protection, which is kind of smart screen in the box. So every single application that is trying to access a malicious, suspicious destination, like network destination, is being blocked here as well. And then if something is being blocked, you can see that this is an alert that is being raised in Microsoft Defender ATP. And you can see the category here, for instance, is command and control. So you get an overview of what are these websites that users or the destinations that users try to access. It's phishing, it's your custom indicators, it's a malicious, known as a malicious website. So all these categories. And then yeah, you have your reports as well as your alerts in your console. And then I just mentioned network protection, which allows you as well to audit the access and then block it. And you can actually configure these things by yourself. If you go in the console, there's indicators. You can see IP addresses and domains that you can specify. If I click on get a new indicator, you can say example.com. When will it expire? It will never expire. You can check the statistics. How many times has this website being executed or tried to access over the past 30 days? What do you want to do? You want to allow these website, you want to alert, or you want to alert and block, and you get a title, and then you can define the scope in the end, like what is it for all machines? Is it only for certain machines in your organization? And then create your own custom IOC for this. So next one is also part of attack surface reduction, as the name probably says. I love these rules. So they give you fine granular control over how applications behave or allowed to behave. So my favorite example is always, and I don't know if you have listened to my one of my webinars before, is it's still the hero. It's macros. Like macros are so bad, and you can do many bad things with macros, but macros are also really good and help our business to get the work done quicker. So there's a balance between what our macros should be allowed to do and what not. So you can restrict macros to, for instance, create child processes or block specific APIs or access to APIs. So you can see we have rules across different areas. So also for lateral movement, credential theft, because we know that the specific applications, they should actually not create specific WMI commands and so on. So use these, and the guidance with attack surface reduction rules from our side is always start all of them in audit mode and see how the block rule would impact your organization. So you can turn on all these macro rules in audit mode, and you would see, hey, if I could turn on this specific rule in block mode and it would impact 5 users because let's say they're using a specific macro that is calling a child process, and then you have to go in there and you can see if this is a legit call, or if maybe the macros should be rewritten and not calling this thing at all. So very rich, and you can go in Microsoft Endpoint Manager, and they're all in the one single view. You can turn them all on and check it out. And then you can actually, here's a screenshot of this, how this looks like. Block credential stealing, it's not configured. You can turn it in audit mode. You can see all the rules here, how they would actually impact, how many of them are blocking, how many of them turn on in audit mode, and then you also get what has been detected, and you can click on this and say configure ASR rule in block mode. So it's a complex topic, and it's critical that you not just block everything because there's legit execution of it, but we're making it easy for you to find the right balance between a good protected attack surface and user productivity. So moving on to next generation protection, there was like this, everybody needed a next gen and a regular AV, the name was bad. So but in a traditional AV, you can name it whatever you want, but a traditional AV usually means you have a signature-based solution, and this is not helpful anymore. So our AV solution was, everybody uses signatures, but it's one of many technologies that are part of our AV solution. So if we look at our threat actors today, some of them are nation states, and some of them are just, commodity malware out there still harming. And if you look at those threat actors, they usually have patience, they have money, they have a lot of funds to get to where they want to go. And they're getting more sophisticated. And we as Microsoft, we have a lot of people looking into the threat landscape, research, taking botnets down and so on. So we have a rich experience in what are the threats and what do we have to look after. And the trends that we see over a while already is like we see all these fileless attacks where a signature won't help. We see all these legit business applications that are now becoming a weapon because they are like exploited and being used for it, or like legit tool as a command line and so on, which you can't just block. So you need a lot more. You need intelligence to help protect against these kind of threats. So if you look at the client, there's machine learning on the client. We have behavioral monitoring to see and understand if this is a legit behavior done by your line of business application or not. We have, and this is very unique here as well, we have a tight integration with our AMSI, which is our anti-malware interface, to see script interface, to deobfuscate scripts before they're running to see if there's something malicious in there. And we also, and this is important, we have a runtime emulator on the box to understand what this file would do when it would run, so before it actually runs. But not everything can be solved on an endpoint. We also have a rich cloud, or like rich technologies in the cloud that are, if you pair them together, are the best protection that you can have. So of course there is metadata based ML, so we send file or events metadata to the cloud to let them analyze if we have seen it, what we know about this. We have file classification malware, machine learning models, and so on. There's a lot of tech that makes an AV solution. So if we look at static versus dynamic, so we know static signatures, they can only focus on a file, on hashes, on strings and emulators, and this is not effective anymore. You need to go with dynamic heuristics to see what are behaviors doing at their runtime. And you do behavior monitoring, you need to scan the memory, you need to have visibility into your scripts and all these things that are running. So this is the effective way. And if you look at all these capabilities, they're like that's file system monitoring. We look at the registry, processes and DLLs. What's the network doing? What's calling whom and why? So there's a lot of scanning and understanding of these. Plus for AMSI and behavior, we saw this on the other slide before, where you had specific machine learning models in the cloud for these kind of dynamic behaviors as well. So a lot can, and like the commodity malware, of course, yeah, plus also a little bit more sophisticated. It's all on the client, can be detected, can be blocked from the client, but you can see the tighter the funnel gets, this also means that the threats are being more sophisticated, more targeting, more sophisticated, and this is where, of course, a lot of extra work in the cloud is being done. So give you an example, a real live example of a DLL site loading, which was one of the MITRE evaluation techniques. So you can see there is your applications, some application that's actually calling whatever, some library DLL, and it's in the system 32 folder where most of the DLLs are actually sitting, and it's a legit signed application and it loads this legit DLL. That's fine. So now an attacker actually drops the same bad some library DLL into the same folder as the executable. And that means that now instead of the good DLL, the bad DLL is being loaded by your signed application. So like behavior monitoring can only behavior monitoring can actually detect these kind of attacks, but DLL side loading is used. So a behavior monitoring signature based would just like behavior would cause a false positive for this. So you need a cloud machine learning because it would generate a lo-fi, we would send the lo-fi to the cloud, we would analyze it and give it back to the client, that the client now blocks and ignores the specific, blocks the specific action. I have a little delay, sorry. Good, let's talk a little bit about endpoint detection and response. So I'm not going into the specific endpoint detection response detection capabilities. We are correlating events and turning detections into alerts, and alerts have a severity. And of course, if you think about especially Windows 10, and of course we also have rich and deep insights into previous versions of Windows, but especially Windows 10, where the solution was founded on, was we have we are part of the operating system. We have deep kernel and memory insights. We are Microsoft. We go next door to the kernel guys and we say, hey, we see more and more attacks doing these things in the kernel. Can you help us, give us more data, expose something that we need to detect those kind of attacks? So we have deep, rich insights, and all these deep, rich insights is what we bring you in a rich investigation experience. We have a rich timeline for all the events. We have additional context. So, and I will actually go back to my demo now, where let's say we start from the dashboard, which is the security operations dashboard. You can get an overview of all your active alerts, all the alerts that have been assigned to someone or are in progress. And I can drill down into a specific machine. Let's go to Barbara. She seems to have a lot of alerts and trouble on her box. So all the alerts, excuse me, tip. All the alerts that have been raised on her machine. You can see also what is the investigation state, which means if our automated investigation taking care of this alert. You see the timeline, and the timeline again, if you decide to go with 6 months of historical data, you have all this data here. And you can also click on every single little event and get additional insights, the entire process tree execution of this event. You can get file hashes, all the details that you need to understand if this is a good or a bad event happening. And of course, we are correlating them into your alerts, but for your investigation, you probably drill a little bit deeper. So, and we talked about TVM before, so this is all TVM related here, as well as on the overview, you will see what's the exposure level. And I mentioned this on my, was it the second slide? This machine here has a risk level of high, and it would give this, if you have set up the configuration to Microsoft Endpoint Manager and Microsoft Conditional Access, you probably configure that a machine with a high risk is not allowed to access corporate resources. So this status is forwarded to Microsoft Endpoint Manager, which means the device compliance is set to not compliant, and conditional access would block this access. The beauty about it is if there's an alert and you have the full thing set to automated, 80% of our alerts can be investigated and remediated through our automation automatically, and then we would resolve the alert and set the risk level to no risk level, and then the machine can access the resources again. So we have alerts, and because attacks are not only happening probably on one machine and there's one alert and this is one attack, we are actually bringing alerts into incidents. Incidents will help you to better understand the entire attack, because you will have all the alerts that are being part of the attack is grouped into one incident. So let's have a look at this incident here. Wow, there's a lot of alerts in this guy, because this attack actually goes across multiple machines. It has multiple alerts that are being associated with it. And you can also see why it was linked. So sometimes it's the same machine at the same time. Sometimes an analyst added this one specifically manually to it. So every single alert will give you why it has been associated with it and so on. So let's talk about again the automation piece, where you can see, let me actually show it from here, MTP incident. So we start investigations and include multiple alerts. It's not that every single alert will now start a new investigation. We group them as well, where it makes sense to go. You can see across multiple machines, or what was the, why did an investigation trigger the remediation. And our automation, and it comes with, it's actually the next capability, but I wanted to go through the demo. It's looking first if this alert needs any attention or action, if there is a threat active on the machine. It will then start investigating, and our investigation is doing a lot of things, and I don't want to call it playbooks. So it's learning and asking a lot of questions. So my favorite example is, hey, there is a file. It was detected as malicious. So there's tons of things I want to know about the file now, which is, where did it come from? have we seen the file somewhere else in the network? Oh, it was downloaded from the internet. Now more questions like, what's the domain? That someone else accessed the domain? Is the domain associated with an activity group? And we answer all these questions, and then we go and remediate the threat. And when I say we go and remediate the threat, you can decide if you allow us to do this fully automated, which is our recommendation, or so semi-automated, which you need to approve our remediation before we do it. So we give you kind of our investigation package. You can look at it. We tell you what we want to do. But you don't want to wait. There are some threat happening on your endpoints and your network. You don't want to wait for an analyst for 3 hours to approve before it's being executed. You might want to group it differently and say, hey, I have maybe some specific assets that I don't want to have it automated, but for most of my clients, it should go automated. So, and then if you click on these, you can see some of this as partially for some of the pending approval here. You can see what has been happened. There's so many entities found. You can see all the files that have been analyzed and what's the machine, whether they're correlated alerts, and all the entities and a log file. So we log everything that has been done, of course, and you can also undo a remediation if you feel like that the remediation removed things that it shouldn't have done. You can undo the remediation. So I want to go back actually to our Barbara's machine for a moment and show you that there's a lot of extra manual response actions beside the automated response. So you can say, I want to collect an additional forensic package, which is DNS cache and network connections and processes and these kind of things. You can run an AV scan. You can perform app control to only allow signed applications. You can isolate the machine, which would isolate the machine from the network and only leave a connection open to Microsoft Defender ATP back to the console. And you can also initiate a live response, which is a remote shell into the client. Even if you have really some nasty things going on, you might want to isolate the machine, and then you can go and initiate a live response, and the client would get a notification, and then you get a terminal kind of things where you can run a few commands, and then you can also upload your own PowerShell script that you can then run. So we had a lot of questions from customers like, oh, I want to get a memory dump, and the other one wanted to get this, and the other one wanted to get it, which is great feedback, but we can't add 500 individual manual response actions required by different personas. So we added live response, which allows you basically to do whatever you want to do on the endpoint. You can then also initiate an automated investigation response. So this could be there is nothing really on the machine, but you are suspicious. There was no alert, so you can now start having an automated investigation running, and you can consult the threat experts. I will come to this in a moment. So and yeah, so this is live response, and you have to configure this. This is not that everybody can just do. You have to allow it. In order to allow it, you have to be a global admin, and then you also have to either allow or not allow, and it's usually turned off if you allow unsigned scripts being uploaded via your live response to your endpoints. So the last thing that I want to show for our security analysts to investigate threats is actually advanced hunting. So yeah, you can see there's a search bar, and actually let me search quickly that you can see that the search is working. So there is a search bar. It's an Elasticsearch. We'll go but you can see it's one line. You cannot say, hey, show me all the system DLL that you found on a machine where the user foo was logged in. So you don't. But look at this file page. This gives you rich insights. There's file SHA, and it gives you if there was virus total detections, how many times have we seen this file in your organization and worldwide. It should give you a good understanding of, is this a oh, looks weird, bad targeting file, or is this a commodity file that's everywhere? You can also, in this case, I don't have the proper, I could actually do it. You could submit this file into your detonation. That's part of Microsoft Defender ATP, so it comes with it. You can submit it, and you get a full readable report back of what this file is capable of doing after we run it in an isolated environment. So back to advanced hunting. Sorry. So this is a more complex language, or like tool, not language, tool. It's Kusto query language that you use. So usually the first 10 minutes is a little bit, let's say, I need to get used to it. But then you will get the feeling for the language, and you would start enjoying writing your own detection queries. So do I have some, let's say this guy here. So this one is detecting whatever someone wrote here, a font driver host.exe for a process file name where the file is has these names. So you can run this query. You can, as you see, save queries, and you can, of course, write new queries. And we have a rich schema which is being extended constantly. So we added, for instance, TVM, so you can include your threat and vulnerability management, and you can see device events, network events. You can query remote, all these extra entities that you can see here. And if the results, and I don't know if this query honestly gives me anything back. It won't, sorry, maybe, let me see if this is, no. But if it would give any results back, the results are also clickable. So you could now click on the individual device and go directly to the timeline on this machine to this specific point. Whiskey, stop it. My dog, I have a puppy, he's eating my furniture. Stop it. And what you can also do is actually, when you save it, turn it into a detection. Where's my? I don't have the rights here in this tenant, but you can turn your queries into custom detections, which is then raising alerts. So you can say, create a new query, create a detection rule out of it, and then it can run every hour, every 2 hours, every 4. You can define this and then say, what does it do? It will alert, it will block, it will isolate the machine. So you have all the individual manual response actions that I showed you before, and of course, alert. So this is really rich, and the hunter community loves advanced hunting. And if you are familiar with the Sigma project, the guy, Stefan, who is the founder of it, he actually also wrote a connector or translator for our hunting queries language. So if you have your queries already somewhere in a different system and they're part of the Sigma project, you can just turn them into Kusto query language. Good. I'm moving. Next part. We talked about this. I went into live system rather than going through the demo. So live response, this is how it looks like. The console, fully audited, of course. Automation, I showed it quickly, but it's really important that you also, for yourself, get understanding. And automation is not, oh, there's an alert, let's isolate the machine. This is not automation. I can write this in Visual Studio, probably in VB script, and I'm not a programmer. But so this is not what an automation should do. An automation should mimic the ideal steps that an analyst would do 24/7. No bio breaks, no vacation, no lunch. It does this all the time with the same high quality over and over again. And it should not only solve your high severity alerts, it can also go into informal alerts. There was a Mimikatz detected and remediated on an endpoint. Awesome. You don't have time to go after this informal alert, but automation can still make sure, why did it get in the first place? Is it somewhere else? Is everything been removed? So take it as a also to be more calm with all the other things that have been detected. So Microsoft Threat Experts, it's our managed threat hunting service, which comes in two components. One is part of Microsoft Defender ATP when you purchase the product, which is our threat experts are proactively, you have to opt in and you have to apply and we have to approve you. So to hunt over your de-identified data to find these hands-on keyboard attackers. And then we also have the second component is experts on demand, which is if you need help and you saw the button, I showed it earlier, request, ask a threat expert, where you can reach out to our experts to get additional support, additional help. And of course, there is a tight connection and or like work collaboration between our different service teams as well. We have our incident response team that helps customers in really nasty situations. There's a handover process and all of this. So Microsoft Threat Experts is an additional oversight and analysis for our customers, and it looks like this. You get tailored alerts for your organization. And again, we don't know what's the file name, what's the customer name, what's the machine name. We see only bits and bytes, and then we will send a notification to bits and bytes that we don't identify back to your system to let you know you should probably have a look at this specific alert. We give you usually additional information such as a advanced hunting query that you might want to run. You can consult a threat expert here. So cross-platform. Sorry, I feel like I'm rushing right now, but it's a lot to cover. And if you have follow-up questions, again, like Valon mentioned, we are here to answer those questions. So just a quick overview, cross-platform. We have Microsoft Defender ATP for Mac, which is already available since, general available since last December. You get all the things that I showed you in the console, the detection, 6 months of data, reputation-based data for your entities. It's all in the same console. You can create your custom TI, you have a SIEM integration, RBAC model, all of these things for antivirus and endpoint detection and response. And as we speak, the teams are working on enriching the Microsoft Defender ATP for Mac with additional Microsoft Defender ATP capabilities. And then we also have right now Microsoft Defender ATP for Linux servers in public preview. And you can see we have AV right now, and the EDR functionality is being added over time, which will give you additional insights into events and things. But you will also, same RBAC model, SIEM integrate, everything that is the cloud and the cloud console, it will be available here as well. So, and before I close, I would love to get your attention to a blog that we just published yesterday, which gives you some guidance and recommendations for the current situation that we are all in. So for Microsoft Defender ATP customers, you have additional coverage for your devices for like every single per user device, per user license can be used on 5 devices. So you can get your home workers to use Microsoft or to turn on Microsoft Defender ATP here as well. We have guidance and support where we help you for the deployment and all these kind of things. So please read the blog. It's the last one that we published yesterday, aka.ms/mdatp blog, where we are all on this together and we help you to get through this in a secure way where now everybody is working from everywhere and on most likely devices that are not today onboarded to Microsoft Defender ATP. And talking about onboarding, the last thing, it's very simple, and you get an onboarding details for whatever operating system you are talking about. So for instance, Windows 10, it's a script, it's a group policy, whatever you have, and you need to bring this down to the client to enable the client, turn it on in a safe way, and let the client know where's your tenant, so to send the data to your tenant. If you have different machines, let's say macOS, you can also get the scripts that you need or whatever the deployment method is and download and bring this to your endpoints. So very simple, very easy, and within a few minutes you should see the data coming to your console after the onboarding process. So please, if you are not using Microsoft Defender ATP today, and if you haven't trialed, or if you trialed a while ago, you should trial and go to aka.ms/mdatp, which brings you to the marketing page, and there's a click to request a trial. Please do not use an onmicrosoft.com address. Use your company address for the sign-up process. If you use Microsoft Defender ATP, make sure you turn on the public preview features. Check out the blog. I talked about it. Follow me. Follow the Microsoft Defender ATP Twitter account. And wow, with that, I'm over. I made it through the hour and I rushed. I hope everybody got some good news out of it. Thank you so much for attending. And I will get this back to Valon to close it out.
Thank you, Heike. Thank you so much. Yes, we passed the hour here, and I see folks are already dropping. There were lots of questions raised and answered at the same time, but there's still some that remain to be answered. And I encourage the audience to visit the Microsoft Defender forum, aka.ms/mdatptc. I have posted this link to the right and also here in the slides. So please do that. And most of the folks actually were wondering about your dog. And so they were asking, I'm just kidding, but they were asking about the dog's name and the breed. So I think you were calling it Whiskey.
Yes, his name is Whiskey and it's an Australian Shepherd. So
oh, I see. Okay.
Let me see if I can quickly turn this on here, if you can see it. Let me see. Can you see the camera?
Not yet. We see the Teams desktop. Hold on now.
You don't see this? The camera should be there.
Yes.
We see a small version of it. Oh, there we go. Yep.
There you go.
I can see it now.
Okay, so just some reminders for the folks before we officially end this call. So our next scheduled webinars are on April 15. That's the MCAS one for enabling secure remote work, and then we have April 20 Azure Sentinel, the MSSP support. On the 22nd of April, we have another Azure Sentinel webinar on threat hunting. This is with on AWS using using Sentinel. And for details and registrations, please go to aka.ms/security-webinars. Thank you, Heike, so much for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answering the questions, that is specifically to Steve and Nick here. And most of all, I would like to thank all of you for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.